Looking for a wedding gift that truly means something? Or perhaps you're single and praying for your future husband? The Dear Future Husband Prayer Journal is a devotional designed to help you prepare your heart for marriage. With guided prompts and space to write letters to your future spouse, it's a meaningful way to start praying for your future today. Find the Dear Future Husband Prayer Journal wherever books are sold.
Life Audio. Welcome to the Untangling Prayer Podcast. I'm Rachel Wojo, and each week we unravel life's knots through prayer. Here you'll find practical wisdom and prayer encouragement to guide you through life's hardest seasons. Join me as we untangle life's messes together, one prayer at a time. Hey there, it's Rachel, and I'm so glad you're here. I want to ask you something before we get started today. Have you ever looked around at the people who were supposed to be in your corner and realized the corner was empty? It might be obvious, maybe a friend who went quiet right before you needed him or her, or maybe it was even quieter than that. There was this slow ache of looking around at your life and realizing you're the one carrying all of this burden and you're the only one carrying it. If that's where you are, today's episode is for you. We're going to spend some time in Psalm 142. It's a psalm that David wrote in a cave when the people he trusted had turned on him and the only voice he had left was a cry. And we're going to find out that David didn't just write Psalm 142 to vent. He wrote it to teach us. So stay with me before we go any further. I want to mention my book, Desperate Prayers, Embracing the Power of Prayer in Life's Darkest Moments. If you are struggling and today's episode hits close to home for you, then you're maybe in a season where prayer feels harder than it used to. Desperate Prayers was written for that exact season. It walks through the prayers of people in the Bible who prayed from cornered cave-like places, and it gives you language for your own. You can find it at desperateprayers.com or anywhere books are sold. So today's question in Hard Spaces, this question is one I think a lot of us are walking around with right now, and it's this: how do I pray when I feel cornered and nobody is in my corner? I want to spend our time today in Psalm 142. And before I read it, I want to tell you where it comes from because the location matters in this situation. David wrote this psalm from inside a cave. He was hiding for his life. King Saul had tried to kill him not once, but 9 times. And right before this psalm gets written, one of David's own, a man named Doeg, had betrayed him to Saul. That betrayal got people killed, 85 priests actually, in a town called Nob. So the cave isn't just a hiding place. It's the consequences of someone he knew talking when they should have kept quiet. That's the setting. There's a man in a cave because someone betrayed him. And David writes, listen to verse 4, "Look and see, there is no one at my right hand. No one is concerned for me. I have no refuge. No one cares for my life." And I want you to catch that phrase, no one at my right hand, because in David's world, your right hand was the place where your defender stood, your advocate. It's the one who spoke up for you in court or who stepped in front of the sword if it came to that. And that was the spot. David's looking at that spot and it's empty. And I've experienced that most of us are never going to be hunted by a king. We're not going to write a psalm from a cave. But we know that feeling. We know what it's like to look around our lives and realize the room is emptier than it should be. The phone is not ringing. The text thread has gone quiet. And people who said, I'm here for you, what they actually meant was, I'm here for you when it's convenient. It's one of the loneliest feelings in the world. And here's what I want you to hear. David is telling you God knows that feeling. God didn't roll his eyes at David's cave. He didn't tell David, hey, toughen up, dude. This is a cave. There's a whole psalm in the Bible written by this man in exactly that place, the cave. And as he looks to the right, he finds the chair empty. But David doesn't stay there. He looks to the right, he sees the empty chair, and then he turns and he addresses the Lord directly. In verse 5, I cry to you, Lord. I say you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. That word refuge, look at where David is when he says it. He's in a literal refuge, right? He's surrounded by rocks. And he looks at the walls of that cave and says, no, God is my refuge, not these walls, not this hiding place. You, Lord, you are my hiding place. The empty chair on one side, but the full presence of God on the other side. Thanks so much for listening into that segment of Questions in Hard Spaces. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsors.
Looking for a wedding gift that truly means something? Or perhaps you're single and praying for your future husband? The Dear Future Husband Prayer Journal is a devotional designed to help you prepare your heart for marriage. With guided prompts and space to write letters to your future spouse, it's a meaningful way to start praying for your future today. Find the Dear Future Husband Prayer Journal wherever books are sold.
Thanks for listening in. And now this is the segment where we focus on one prayer principle to help you pray more and worry less. And today's principle is this. David didn't just pray Psalm 142. He's teaching us how to pray it. Most of us read the Psalms and we think David was just pouring his heart out, that this was an overflow. And he was. Psalm 142 has a Hebrew word at the very top of it. Some of us skip right over it, but that word is maskil, M-A-S-K-I-L. It's a teaching psalm. It's a composition. It's something you write down purposefully because other people are going to need it. And so picture this, David gets out of the cave, he survives, and at some point he sits down and he says, I need to write that one down. People are going to need this. He didn't just vent. He took the prayer that pulled him through the cave and he turned it into a teaching moment. Because now we're not just listening in on David's worst day. We're being handed something we can use the next time we're in our own cave. What is that method? Well, look at how he prays. He starts very honest. I pour out my complaint before him. I tell him my trouble. He doesn't open with, Lord, you know how grateful I am. This is not a Thanksgiving psalm. He opens with the trouble and he pours it out. And that is permission. You don't have to clean up your prayer before you take it to God. David surely didn't. And he keeps going on. When my spirit grows faint within me, it is you who watches over my way. He names the faintness. He doesn't pretend that it's not existing, but he also talks about God watching. God knows the way. Naming what you feel doesn't make God smaller. It makes the prayer real. And so then he asks, he begs, listen to my cry, for I am in desperate need. Desperate need. Those are his words, not mine. He asks like a man in a cave who has nowhere to go, because that's who he is. And I don't want you to miss this. In Hebrew, the same word David uses for the cave can also mean prison. Some scholars say he was using that word on purpose to mean both prison and cave. It was a hiding place, but it was also a cell. He couldn't leave. He was stuck. He didn't choose this, and he couldn't get out of it. A lot of us know cave seasons are also prison seasons. the marriage where you can't see the way through, a diagnosis that nobody asked for, or grief that's hemmed you in for moments and years or months and shows no sign of letting up. There's caregiving, jobs, a stretch of life that feels like four walls that are closing in. And Psalm 142 is written for those caves. David is not telling us how to get out of the cave. He's telling us how to pray inside the cave. So if you're in a cornered season this week, think about what David did. Tell God the truth about what's happening and about how tired you are of it, and ask Him for what you need without dressing it up. And then say what David said. You are my refuge. You are my portion, even in here. In our final segment, I wanted to share this answer prayer story, and I just heard this story last week. It's a family. I promised I would keep the details anonymous, so I'm going to leave out the names and the places, but you need to hear what God did. A mom in this family had been struggling to breathe for some time. Something was seriously wrong with her and had been wrong with her for a while. She'd been to the doctor, and the doctor referred her to a specialist, and the appointment time finally came. They finally got it moved up, and while she was struggling to breathe, her own mom and the grandmother in the story was praying. Specifically, praying that somehow, some way, the appointment would come sooner and that God would move up the timeliness, that He would make a way where the calendar said there wasn't a way. And in the meantime, this mom's little girl, so we've got 3 generations here, was having ear trouble. And she'd been referred to an ENT specialist for that. And here's the first thing that God did. The mom's specialist appointment and the daughter's ENT appointment ended up being scheduled for the very same day. Miles from home, 2 completely separate referrals, 2 completely separate doctors, and somehow they land on the same day in the same general area. So they go to the mom's appointment first, and it doesn't go well. The specialist she'd been waiting on had a very cram-packed schedule, and they needed to schedule testing. And so they'd scheduled the testing for 4 months out. That means she would have no relief for 4 months. And so then they drive to the little girl's ENT appointment, and the ENT exam. The little girl, he examines the little girl and he says, her ears are completely fine. There's nothing wrong with her ears. But while he's standing there in the exam room, he notices the mom's breathing. And as a good doctor, he knows something is seriously off. And he asks if it's okay if he can check her lungs, listen to her. It turned out that her oxygen percent was at 50% saturation. And if any of you know what that means, it means she was in a critical state. This is not a number that you typically walk around with. It's a number that lands you in the hospital. And this doctor that her daughter had been referred to for the ears for her younger daughter knew exactly what was happening with the mom's breathing and made a diagnosis, and he knew what needed to be done. And he scheduled her for surgery for the very next day. Just sit with that for a minute. The grandmother had been praying for an earlier appointment time, and that's the prayer she was bringing. And God didn't answer it by moving around or changing anything. He answered it by getting the right doctor in the same room on the same day, like above and beyond the answer. The daughter and the mom both had prayers answered that day through an unrelated referral, through a paper that had nothing to do with the original breathing problem at all. God didn't get her out of the cave before He showed up. The cave was still there. The first specialist still had her on a 4-month wait. But inside that cornered moment, the very same day, God had already positioned another doctor who would help her. And that's Psalm 142. That's David in the cave saying, God, you are my refuge. That's a praying grandmother who's unanswered for a moment looked like God had been answering it the whole time, just not the way that she expected. It's a reminder for the rest of us that when the door you're knocking on does not open, watch for other doors. Sometimes God answers the prayer of urgency through a way you weren't even looking at. If today's episode put words to a season that you've been in or you're in right now, maybe, I want to point you back one more time to Desperate Prayers. The whole book is built around prayers from cave-like places. David's cave, Hannah at the temple, Jonah in the belly of a well, Hagar in the wilderness. People who prayed when they had nowhere else to go and discovered that God was the refuge they were looking for the whole time. You can find Desperate Prayers at desperateprayers.com or wherever you buy books. The audiobook is there too, if that's easier in your season right now. Thank you so much for joining me on the Untangling Prayer podcast. If this episode encouraged you, be sure to share it with someone who needs to hear this week. Maybe someone who's in a cave looking around at their own life right now and realizing that the chair is empty and she needs the presence of God. Until next time, remember, God sees you, He hears you, and He knows your needs. Thanks for joining me on the Untangling Prayer podcast. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who could use a little hope. And be sure to subscribe for more. Until next time, keep seeking, keep trusting, and keep praying.
What if the tree that held Jesus could speak? I'm Tim Tebow, and my new book, If the Tree Could Speak, reimagines the Easter story through the lens of the cross itself. My hope is that it inspires fresh hope in the redemption we have through Jesus. Available now wherever books are sold.